Dr. Cook here. Well, thanks for returning to session number 40 of our Mastering Mandelbulb 3D Formula tutorial series. I got a big yellow blob in front of me. How did I get to this? What I did is I have all my other formulas turned off. The iteration count is 0, and all I did is I rendered Amazing Box completely on its own in alternate mode. Obviously, alternate hybrid mode isn't really doing me any good right now because I only have one formula. All right. But what's going on here is that my camera is buried inside of a fractal. So what do I do about it? There's a couple things I can do about it, actually. And there's easier and there's hard ways to do it. I could send this over to the navigator and I could back away. I could back my camera out. All right. Pretty straightforward to do. But let's do it. All right. So let's turn on my navigator for you. Okay. There we go. Oh, all right. Let's pull the parameters in. Okay. So so my camera is literally buried inside the fractal. Let's turn on the automatic zoom. Okay. Pull the parameter in. That didn't help any. So now what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to back my camera out. And I'm going to use that with this walk forward and walk reverse. I'm going to walk out. So I'm walking out away from the fractal. All right. I'm punching the walk backwards, and I'm pretty deep here. So I'm going to be at this for a while. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the fixed zoom and steps on. So that gives me control of the zoom. You want to know all about this? Go look at my tutorial series number 1. All right, so I'm going to see if I can back out the zoom. Come on. Wow. My camera is really, really buried in there. Okay. There we go. Something's happening. Here we go. I'm doing the zoom. All right. Okay. I'm punching the zoom. I'm backing out the zoom. All right. My camera is so buried in here. There's nothing I can do about this. He and the navigator. All right. Let's turn our attention back to the main window. Let's clean up my screen a little bit here. We're back to the main. Now, if I come down here, and if I use the inside-outside render, and I choose inside render, all right, and then recalculate. Okay. So what I'm allowing Mandelbulb3D application to do for me is for it to put the rendered scene so that I'm simulating my camera inside the fractal. Now, the Amazing Box formula is amazing. It's extremely detailed. It's got some very, very interesting effects that will play against other fractals. Typically, you don't use the Amazing Box entirely on its own. Typically, you use it to mix with other formulas. Now, we saw that in the last session where I had the BT1 Pine that was combined in alternate hybrid mode with the Amazing Box, and I was getting some very interesting visual effects. This is the Amazing Box completely on its own, and we see here it's not working that well. It's not a very useful formula, I have found, on its own, but it is amazing when you combine it with other stuff. Now, so the way I solve this is I did an inside render. Okay. All right, but okay, well, that was just we just got sidetracked on that. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. Let's come up to formula number 1, and I'm going to turn that back on, and I'm going to calculate. Let's see. Okay, formula BT Pine and formula 1 Bailout. It's all the same. Okay, so what happened to our image? BT1 Pine is turned back on. And let's see, is this the one? T Glad, that's still turned off. An Amazing Box is still turned on. The only thing I've changed here is this inside render. Okay, I know what I did. Okay, so what I did with this inside render, I forced Mandelbulb to put its simulated camera inside. All right, if I go back outside again, I'm putting the camera outside. There we go. And earlier I had used the navigator and I zoomed way in, and then I pushed it back over to the main, and so I'm real close. So what I could do down here to avoid that happening again to me is I could do inside and outside render, which allows the Mandelbulb3D application to determine where that camera should be, what's the best view. So inside and outside selection is actually better, whereas if the inside render, I'm forcing Mandelbulb to be inside the render. If I force it outside, I'm forcing it to be outside, which turns out all right. When you get into a situation like this, just go with the inside and outside and let Mandelbulb3D application determine where your camera should be for purposes of the main view of your formula arrangement. Okay, so what I've done here with the navigator is I got real close, and all of these position coordinates were changed, and the main held on to these main coordinates. So let's push that back over to the navigator. I'll turn it back on for you. Okay, and let's, oh, that's, okay. That's interesting. What happens is it's the zoom was screwed up. All right, so let's do that. I just turned the zoom, I just re-enabled the auto zoom. A very tricky little area here, this auto zoom. Doesn't always work well. I did talk about this in tutorial series number 1. Okay, so let me, I'm going to navigate here a little bit. Okay. Okay, auto zoom is on. Let's walk back in a little bit, not too much. Push that back over to main. Okay, recalculate. I'm going to turn off this navigator for you. So, okay, we got a better view now. Okay, so look, I think 3 sessions beating on this particular arrangement, I think that's enough to give you some tips and some pointers. Let me just kind of review. Basically, when you build a Mandelbulb scene, you want to ask yourself, am I going for a still or am I going for an animation? You want to ask yourself, is there so much detail there that the detail is going to get lost in these tiny little things, in these little bulbs and nodes here? Will the detail get so lost that I can't recover anything? It's not going to look good. And you put 5 hours into something and then it doesn't look good. So ask yourself, can the detail hold? Ask yourself whether or not the pattern is good enough to work with. All right. do you have enough room where you can fly through a Mandelbulb scene, or is it just a tiny little area? Can you modify the colors and the lighting to make the scene look good? In this case, if we were to get into lighting, and we're not going to, you got a lot of shadows here. Can the shadows hold? All right, all this blue area here, this is all transparency. There are no pixels that the Mandelbulb3D is writing to the screen. They're just transparent. They're just showing it to you with a gradient blue. Okay, but that's transparency in there. You know, can it hold the shadows? Can it hold the details? Will the colors look good? Is there enough bulb there to do much of anything with? Those are all questions that should go through your head to determine if you're going to stay with that Mandelbulb scene, or modify it, or throw it away. All right? All right, so enough on that topic for now. Let's go refresh our coffees, and I'll see you in the next scene.